Disclaimer: this story was based on true events that have happened to me. Everyone has that eerie sensation sometime in their life. Some are able to explain the phenomenon, while others can't. It's that feeling of someone, or something, watching you. It's that unknown experience when either dread or curiosity can get the best of you. You could be quietly sitting at home, earbuds in, and immersed in your technology when it hits you. You look up from your phone to see your parents sitting, watching television, paying you no mind. Your siblings are sitting on the floor, drowned in a video game, but you find no reason for the feeling you just had. Some people brush it off, while others try to rationalize it. On rare occasions, some actually find the true answer. It was a warm day in August, and I was quietly sitting at the window seat inside an internet cafe near my college campus. I had my music blaring in my ears to help drown out the busy customers while I vigorously worked on a research paper. It was close to the end of the semester, so the teacher were piling work on the students to stay on schedule. After about an hour of staring at my laptop, I suddenly had the feeling of eyes on me. Being in a pretty busy place, I didn't really give it much thought. I looked up and didn't see anything out of the ordinary. There were a few men sitting at a table, chatting, other college students making use of the free Wi-Fi, and a woman at the register getting her order taken. No eyes were on me, that is, until I looked closer at the woman. I hadn't looked down to see the little girl tightly wrapped around her leg, probably around 3 or 4. She was looking at me from behind her mother's leg with a strange look on her face. It was hard to explain. Sort of a blank but frightening stare directly at me. She didn't look very well dressed considering she was out in public. She had dirty brown hair that was matted down in random places, bare feet, and a white dress that was stained with dark colors, as if she had just finished playing in a flower bed. I silently smiled at the young girl and waved. After getting no response, not even a change of facial expression, I shrugged and continued working on my laptop. About a minute went by with the feeling of the little girl's eyes on me. I decided to look back up out of instinct, but she was gone. The mother was paying for her food as I quickly scanned the room for any sign of her daughter, as it appeared she didn't realize the girl was gone. After I noticed no signs of anyone younger than me, I quickly walked over to the woman and tried to explain that her daughter was missing. What she said next disturbed me. "I'm sorry, but I came here alone. The little girl hugging your leg, she wasn't yours?" No. I didn't feel anyone on my leg." The cashier confirmed that she came in alone. Shocked, I apologized and slowly walked back to my seat. I had noticed the girl in too much detail. How could no one else have seen that? After being certain the girl was not in the building, I started to rationalize it as just being a daydream that seemed to slip into my reality. I mean, I had been staying up late worried about this paper. I regained my composure and decided to just put it in the back of my mind for now. About 30 minutes went by before the feeling came back. I tried for as long as I could to ignore it, hoping the feeling was just my nerves, but the longer I waited, the worse it got. Eventually, I couldn't take it. I snapped my head up and immediately I was face to face with the brown-headed girl from before. She was now in the seat directly across from me, staring with that fearful look in her eyes. I let out a scream as I tumbled to the ground. I broke the gaze for just a moment to catch myself, but when I looked back up, she was gone once again. The only eyes on me were those of everyone else in the cafe, and the girl was nowhere in sight. Being just as embarrassed as I was frightened, I grabbed my stuff and quickly walked out and back towards my dorm. As I continued down the street, I was still trying to wrap my head around what had just happened, when I suddenly saw her again. She'd be across the road behind a light post, in the back seat of a passing car, even through a window in the back of a shop. She was constantly staring at me, and I just had this feeling she wanted something. A feeling of dread swept over me as I began to sprint and keep my eyes focused on my path to safety. Luckily, I made it back to my dorm without another sighting and the feeling was long gone. Exhausted from my adrenaline rush, I fell asleep right away. The next day, I woke up to the sound of beating on my door. As I opened it, 2 police officers told me to come with them to the station for questioning. Apparently, a man had been arrested right outside the cafe I was in the evening before. They told me that a group of kids were walking down the sidewalk when they noticed the man sitting in his parked car and fully focused on the restaurant with a large camera. The kids slowly walked by and peered inside his car. Behind the passenger's seat, They could plainly see some nylon rope, a large roll of saran wrap, and the glistening of a large butcher's knife. They quickly walked off and called the police to investigate. When they arrived, police found the objects, took the man's camera, and shortly after, took him in for questioning. The man had apparently been taking pictures all day of girls walking down the street and in the restaurant. The police took out the camera the man had and flipped through some of the man's final pictures. My heart sank as they flipped through multiple pictures of me sitting on my laptop, getting up to talk to the woman at the register, falling out of my chair, and leaving the restaurant. Those were the last photos he had taken before he was caught, and they suspected I was going to be his next victim. They asked about me falling out of my chair, and that's when I revealed the events containing the little girl. I thought they would think I was crazy, but after describing her, the police chief's face went white. They told me they found out that the man had just recently been released from prison after serving a 25-year sentence for the kidnapping and murder of over a dozen women ranging from 30 years old all the way down to a 3-year-old child being his last victim. They showed me an old newspaper clipping from the man's file that had a picture of the little girl, and after seeing it, a new feeling arose. This time, I didn't feel dread, but a sense of remorse, fear, and peace, all at once. The picture was taken sometime before her death, and she was standing barefoot in a field with long brown hair and a beautiful white dress. Boy, you're entirely too old to be pussyfooting with a grown hog like that. If you intend to do a job, then do it, don't hesitate, said the blood-soaked farmer. I looked down at the horror-stricken pig with pity in my eyes. It seemed to know what would happen next. The poor creature was beginning to squeal. It was too similar to the cries of a human. I felt sickened, like I was witnessing a murder. With one slash of the knife, one squirt of the arterial spray, one choked squeal, the job was done. James Jimmy O'Neill, a no-nonsense farmer old enough to feel the aches of a body abused by hard work, yet not old enough to enjoy the relief that comes with retirement, slit the throat of the unruly pig. Blood. Blood everywhere. It soaked the ruby concrete of the floor of the slaughterhouse. It was thick and hot, and sluggishly flowed down the sloped floor towards the drain. Somehow it moved slower than normal liquid. I watched as it made its descent towards the drainage system. I stood there transfixed. I could not pry my eyes away from the gruesome trek of the blood. It felt as if I was staring at it for hours. Boy, are you even listening to me? I want this mess cleaned up. You think you can handle that? Questioned the calloused old farmer. Being drawn out of my reveling, I responded, Yes, sir, I will clean it up. I had originally been tasked to slaughter the pig, but I couldn't do it. Now I stood there, eyes downcast, looking thoroughly abashed. I swear kids these days are practically useless. All this school and respecting others bullshit is ruining the youth. Are you going to be able to clean up this mess, or are you going to just stand there like an invalid again? Said the gruff voice of the bent man. Beginning to turn red in the face, I kept my eyes glued on the growing pool of blood. I was unable to muster the courage to meet the old man's withering stare. With a nod of my head, I agreed. Without a second glance, the old man left the barn. I doubted that age would do anything to help me with my little problem. The fact of the matter is, I am no killer. It was tough enough for me to kill mosquitoes. How was I supposed to kill a pig I had tended to for a whole year? I knew I wouldn't be able to go through with it when the pig locked eyes with me. Its eyes seemed to be pleading with me, reminding me of all the times we had spent together. I talked to the pig, shared my hopes and dreams, my failures, even read poems and stories to it. It was perhaps the closest thing to a friend I had. Now, those dead and familiar eyes drilled into me. They accused me of 1,000 betrayals. They hurled obscenities at me. The room was growing hot. The walls seemed to be moving in, suffocating me. That blood again. All I saw was red all around me. I heard it pumping in my ears. It was as if the sound of my blood rushing in my veins was being amplified somehow. I felt my head grow heavy, like I had been breathing too much toxic fumes. The lights grew dim and all went black. Asterisk. I looked up, seeing the old farmer approaching me with the knife. The man turned to a figure saying, "Boy, you are entirely too old to be pussyfooting with a grown hog like that. If you intend to do a job, then do it, don't hesitate." The farmer bent down towards me, brandishing the knife. I cried out. Fear paralyzed me, and I knew exactly what was going to come. With a white-hot flash of pain, the knife ran across my neck. Blood rushed down my throat, clogging my air passages. I was choking on my own lifeblood. I tried to spit the sticky hot liquid out of my throat. My efforts were in vain. I felt my body grow weak, my vision fading. Before the darkness could consume me, I looked to see a queasy-looking me beginning to clean up the mess. Do you remember a show called Gilligan's Island? It was an American sitcom that aired in 1964 with 3 seasons and 99 episodes, 2 being in black and white and the latter in color, which started in 1965. Let me summarize what the show is about. There's a 2-man crew on the charter boat SS Minnow and 5 passengers on a 3-hour tour from Honolulu who run into a typhoon and are shipwrecked on an uncharted island somewhere in the Pacific. That's all the plot is. I did get that information from Wikipedia. And honestly, the show isn't bad to watch. But there's an episode of Gilligan's Island that has never been released by CBS Productions because of its disturbing nature. It wasn't violent. No, it was just disturbing to watch compared to the rest of the show. The episode was listed as the 100th episode of the series before the show was cancelled and added to the pit of forgotten shows, but this episode was not forgotten. I'm going to share some information about this episode, but promise me that you won't laugh. The episode is called Gilligan Island, like the name of the show, but of course, the pun. It might have been a test episode, I really don't know. But now that we're done talking about the name, let's focus on the main plot. I will tell you this since I actually have the full episode saved on my computer. The episode starts like any other, with Gilligan and the rest getting stranded on an island. But this one, which has never been seen in the show before, looks abandoned and forgotten, and the episode starts right away with Gilligan and the skipper being the only people on the island. They started exploring, and it isn't long before they saw a bunch of spiders and bones on the ground. The exploration continues, and Gilligan finds the corpse of a man, presumably someone who died. Skipper and Gilligan were starving, so they grabbed a knife and plunged it into one of the bodies. He gives half of the organs to the skipper, and he eats the rest. I mean, it sounds weird, I know, but I suppose in this case, it's necessary for survival. I was figuring out how they could leave the island until the camera pans to the boat being damaged. Keep in mind that I haven't watched many other episodes of this show. I watched it with my parents on a few occasions, but I'm currently researching the show as I'm typing this, and I just found this episode. To my belief, this show is indeed family-friendly, so my guess is that they wouldn't be showing cannibalism. Gilligan continued eating the organs with the skipper, and Gilligan puts his clothes on the skeleton because his outfit got dirty from the bloody feast. He's naked, and censored, and dirty and bloody. I'm wondering if this episode might have been targeted for an older audience unlike the rest of the show, and this is where the main part of the episode comes in. Gilligan and the skipper start to fix the boat to get back to the island. They're looking for parts, and don't find any. Gilligan breaks the shed down and uses the shed parts to make the boat. Gilligan then passes out due to dehydration. He is not dead, and the skipper notices and gives him water. Gilligan drinks it, but he's also hungry. He apologizes to the skipper as he picks up a rock and starts beating his hand, causing blood to come out. He groans in pain, and Gilligan puts a bandage on his hand. He eats the bloody pieces from it. The next scene shows them starting to build a campfire to get warm. Gilligan and the skipper were lying near the fire. The skipper starts yelling and starts punching Gilligan suddenly. He bit a piece of his arm off and screamed in agony. After this scene ends, Gilligan puts his clothes on because he kept complaining about things going into his groin in the scene. He then starts fixing the boat again, and it's at this point that they finally got off the island. The episode cuts to black with the credits, and I was thankful that this ended more happily at least more of a resolution anyway, but I still don't know what to think about the rest of this episode. Why would CBS make this in the first place? I googled this episode on IMDb, and found nothing except Gilligan, the goddess from 1967, being in the last part of Season 3, not Season 4. I used the Wayback Machine, and I found something. There was no rating, and the genre of comedy and family was like the rest of the episodes, but here's what the description read. Gilligan and the skipper got stuck on an island, and they need to take what was there to survive. Will they die or make trouble for one another? There were no photos, and of course the top two actors, Gilligan, played by Bob Denver, and the skipper, played by Alan Hale Jr., had nothing unusual about them. Everything else was the same, unusual, but the same. I noticed that the reviews were not very good. The Gilligan Island set was burned to the ground in real life. Yes, it was a real place.